house is quiet now, the porch light's on, and the day is finally winding down. Come sit with me a minute. The air tonight has that crisp edge to it, the kind that makes you want to pull your collar up and settle in. Tonight, I just want to talk about how a simple piece of fruit used to be the center of our whole world, the way only we remember it. It seems funny now thinking that an apple could hold so much meaning, but back in the 1950s, it wasn't just a snack. It was a connection to the past, a shield against our worries, and the center of our kitchen rituals. Tell me if you remember this exact sound, the heavy clack, clack, clack of a mechanical apple peeler clamped to the kitchen table. Maybe yours was painted that serviceable green, or maybe white enamel, but they all worked the same. You'd spike the apple, turn the crank, and watch that little blade go to work, followed by that sharp snap when a fresh wine sap finally gave up its skin. That machine turned a chore into a little mechanical spectacle. And remember what it produced? That long, impossibly perfect red ribbon of peel. We didn't just throw those away. To a kid in the 50s, that crimson spiral was a toy, a sensory object. Or, if you were superstitious, a bit of parlor magic. You'd take that long strip, swing it around your head 3 times, and let it drop to the floor. Whatever letter shape it landed in was supposed to be the initial of your true love. We found magic in the kitchen scraps back then. But that sound, the clack of the gears and the snap of the fruit, meant the kitchen was about to smell like heaven. You know, looking back, the 1950s was a strange time for fruit. We were stuck right between the old agrarian world and the new industrial one. We were living in modern suburbs, but our taste buds still remembered the farm. On one hand, we had the supermarkets pushing those shiny, perfect-looking red, delicious apples shipped in from Washington State. Remember those? Deep purple red, symmetrical, with those 5 distinct little points on the bottom. They looked like a painting of an apple, but Lord help you if they'd been in cold storage too long. You'd bite in and the skin was tough as leather and the inside was mealy and dry. But we bought them, and we put them in our lunch boxes because they were consistent and they were modern. But in our hearts and in our backyards, we knew better. We craved the specific textures that the supermarkets couldn't quite capture. I'm 8 years old again, standing under the yellow transparent tree in the late July. You don't see those much anymore. They were pale, soft apples with a very short window. You had to use them the second they fell. Mama would throw them in a pot, and they wouldn't just cook down, they would dissolve, completely melt, into this creamy white froth, no sugar needed, just pure summer foam. That's a texture you can't buy in a store today. Or the Northern Spy. Now that was a pie. Apple. It had spine. It didn't turn to mush. It stayed firm and spicy, even after an hour in a hot oven. Our kitchens in the 50s were like little laboratories where the old habits battled it out with new conveniences. Take something like apple crisp. Before Quaker Oats took over every recipe, there was the 1950 Betty Crocker Picture Cookbook Standard. It was simpler then. No oats, no brown sugar, just white flour, white sugar, and heaps of butter that you rubbed together with your own clean fingertips until it felt like damp sand. It was a humble dessert where the tartness of a Jonathan apple was the star, not just a vehicle for sugar. But the apple wasn't just food back then, it was a mission. I still clearly remember the posters hanging in the school nurse's office, bright colors, smiling kids with blindingly white teeth. That wasn't an accident. That was the National Apple Institute at work. They had this slogan that was drilled into our heads: nature's toothbrush. Did you hear that one? In an era where we were all starting to eat a lot more processed sugar, they told our mothers that biting into a crisp raw apple scrubbed our teeth clean and massaged our gums. I reckon the dentists were in on it too. It was a brilliant trick, really. We thought we were getting a treat, and Mama thought she was saving on dental bills. It went deeper than teeth, though. You have to remember, this was an era where we felt vulnerable. We were terrified of polio before the Salk vaccine became widespread. Every parent was looking for a shield, an antidote to the scary, invisible things in the world, so they marketed the apple as the health fruit. They sold us the idea that the sun-ripened energy and vitamin C in a wine sap or a Rome Beauty would build up our resistance. They talked about pectin for digestion. We were obsessed with digestion back then. The apple became almost like a magic talisman. If you ate your apple a day, you were safe, healthy, and vibrant. This need for something solid, something real, changed how we cooked, too. We didn't just bake pies. We reached back into history for comfort. I remember Mama making apple pan dowdy. Now, that wasn't a pretty standardized supermarket dessert. It was part of a whole colonial revival feeling we had going on. We wanted to feel connected to the sturdy pioneers. She'd bake it in a heavy cast-iron skillet or an old bean pot. Using that primitive, heavy cookware felt grounding in the atomic age. Halfway through baking, she'd take a heavy spoon and deliberately smash the crust right down into the boiling juice. She called it dowdying the crust. It was a sticky, caramelized mess of molasses and spices, the opposite of those perfect red delicious apples, but it tasted like history. It tasted real. And if we were feeling fancy, we'd have baked apples. This was a science in itself. Mama would carefully core them. Then she'd take a paring knife and slice a ring of skin off around the middle. She called it girdling the apple so the steam could escape without bursting the whole thing. It made them look neat and precise when they came out of the oven. But this being the 50s, we couldn't just leave them plain. We'd fill the centers with butter, brown sugar, and those spicy red cinnamon candies, red hots. The heat would melt the candy, and the whole inside of the natural fruit would turn a violent neon pink. It was a little bit of nature and a little bit of modern chemistry all in one bowl. Even our parties were centered around them. Think about Halloween. Bobbing for apples was a classic game, but even that changed in the 50s. In the shadow of polio, the idea of a dozen kids sticking their faces into the same tub of murky water started to make mothers nervous. So, we adapted. Remember apples on a string? Hanging them from a doorway and trying to get a bite without using your hands? It was cleaner, safer, but still gave us that slapstick fun. I suppose that's what the decade was, really. We were peeling apples with marvelous little machines, using them to divine our futures, dyeing them neon with modern candy, but still hoping that an old-fashioned fruit could keep us safe and healthy in a complicated new world. And you know what? When I smell cinnamon and baked apples today, I still believe it can. So when you're done listening tonight, please drop down to the comments and tell me your own apple memory. Did you ever throw a peel over your shoulder to see your sweetheart's initial? Or do you remember those nature's toothbrush posters in school? I'll be sitting right here reading every single one with the biggest grin you ever saw. All right, let's see if your memory is as sharp as a northern spy flavor. Here's your quiz. 1. What was the exact two-word slogan the National Apple Institute used to claim apples cleaned your teeth? 2. Which summer apple variety was known for melting completely into a creamy white froth when cooked? 3. Besides teeth, what major 1950s health fear did people hope apples would help protect children against? 4. What was the name of the dessert that required you to use a spoon to break the crust halfway through baking? 5. What small red candies did we stuff inside baked apples to turn the insides neon pink? If you got those right, well, you've got a memory like a steel trap. If a couple slipped away, that's just fine. We're keeping those gears moving, and that's what matters. Hit that subscribe button, ring the little bell. Join me tomorrow morning for a talk about the Victory Gardens of 43. Until then, take care of yourselves, and may the Lord bless you.